Welcome back to Think, the podcast with me, Dylan Schreibman. Thank you for joining me for another conversation. I'm so happy that you are here. Just a quick reminder, go ahead and subscribe down below if you want to join the conversation each Tuesday. We talk about everything on this channel, so let me know if you have any suggestions. And if you want to join the party, go ahead and subscribe down below. Today is episode 11, and we are thinking about anxiety and how it has impacted my life. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Think. Today's topic is one that has centered really around my whole life, really defined my life at times. So this is going to be a difficult podcast to shoot, an interesting podcast to shoot, maybe emotional at times, as anxiety has really impacted a lot of my life. And I've talked about it briefly before on social media platforms, but I've never done a deep dive like this into it. So this is definitely a scary conversation, but one that I think needs to be had. I, if my story helps one person, that is okay with me. And if my story can relate to one person, that is okay with me. I think it's important to share our stories and what we go through, not suppress, just because you never know who it could relate to or who needs to hear it on that day. I think this is something I've always been open about to a certain extent and not embarrassed about or not feeling stigmatized about. So I thought, what better way than to share it on the podcast and share how it has impacted my life? I wanted to start with what anxiety is and give a definition. I'm sure most of you already are aware of what it is. Either you deal with it yourself in your day-to-day life, or a close friend or family member deals with it, so you kind of have a secondhand experience to it. But just in case you didn't know, I kind of want to start there and then move forward. A quick Google search says anxiety is a common human emotion characterized by feelings of fear, worry, and unease. They hit it right on the mark. That really sums it up. I think the fear is a lot of it. The worry is a lot of it because of the fear. I think as we get older and we start dealing with it for a longer duration of time, we kind of have an aha moment of ask yourself, what is my anxiety saying to me? And actually run towards it in a way instead of running away from it or allowing it to run away from that thing that you're thinking about. I think it can be placed in one of two categories. I think for me, that's what I found. Number one, it can actually be a good thing and make you feel like, oh, I really shouldn't be making this decision, or I really shouldn't be doing this, and it's trying to protect you and keep you safe. Or number two, it's trying to protect you, but you don't need the protection from that decision. That decision is actually going to propel you or move you forward in whatever it is you're looking to do. So I think there comes a time where you're like, okay, anxiety, if it is that case, I think there comes a time where you're like, okay, anxiety, I'm not listening to you for this. Like, you're lying to me. I'm actually okay with making this decision. And I feel safe making this decision. And you are just trying to keep me in my comfort zone. I think one of the ways anxiety can impact your life is to keep you in a comfort zone because it feels safe. When in actuality in life, you kind of need to step out your comfort zone a little bit. And I was thinking the other day, and I think it was one of the most powerful things of it's okay to take your inner critic and sit it aside for a moment and say, okay, I hear you, but this doesn't apply in this situation, or think of a logical response to it and move forward. I think now, any moment I do have anxiety, I do sit down and I'm like, okay, why am I having anxiety over this? Is there a deeper meaning? Is it just trying to protect me? Do I need its protection? Is it actually a good thing? I think that makes it a bit easier to manage because obviously, I don't think it's ever going to go away. So, learning to have a healthy relationship with it, I think, is really important. I was also wondering how many people in the world deal with anxiety? How many people have anxiety? According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 19.1% of adults experience an anxiety disorder. That comes out to 40 million people. I thought it would be higher, to be honest. I am wondering what those 80% of people think about on the daily. Please comment and let me know because you have all that free space from not having anxiety to think about or do other things. So I'm always interested with the people that don't deal with an anxiety disorder, how they kind of go through life. That has always interested me. And so I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. I'm actually really intrigued by that. I love getting to know other people's stories, and that is one thing I've always wanted to know. Now that we've talked about general anxiety and what I've tried to do to manage it and help it briefly, I could do a whole actual full episode on that. Maybe I will one day. But for today's episode, I kind of want to get into the areas that anxiety has impacted my life. Again, this is going to be kind of a deep dive, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of where this goes and how I react to this. I'm really delving into it today and running towards it, not running from it. So here we go. I wanted to start with my career. I've always been a career-oriented person ever since I can remember. Ever since my middle school TV sports anchor days, I've always, that just played for the school, I always felt career oriented and I've always had so many goals of I wanted to do. And some have stayed the course. I've had goals since I was a child that I've wanted to do. And then some new goals have popped up throughout my life and changed the direction that I want to go in. I think the first thing with my career, just talking from an anxiety standpoint, is it's given me a lot of imposter syndrome. So I guess when things do happen for me, I necessarily don't feel like I deserve them to happen for me. I think my empathy side kind of struggles with that and was like, why would ask, why do I deserve it? You know, if someone else could get it or would help someone else, or someone else didn't get this, but I caught this break, or stuff like that, I think has always plagued me, feeling bad and not feeling deserving. I think I've turned the leaf on that and told myself, no, you deserve it too. There's room for everyone at the table. And I think once you take that perspective, it's a lot easier that what is meant for you will find you, and there is room for everyone in the room that they want to go into, or the room that they are, the path that they are walking. There's your opportunity that you got will not impact somebody else's life. And I think that has made it a lot easier. I do want to look up the definition of imposter syndrome, just not to misquote anything and make sure I'm giving the right information. So, imposter syndrome is a behavioral health issue that causes people to doubt their skills, accomplish, and intellect. Yeah, you doubt a lot of things, and I don't think I deserve a lot of things, which actually brings me to my next point. I feel like I'm not good enough to accomplish my goals, which I guess can be looped in with the imposter syndrome, the doubt and the fear of not being good enough and not deserving enough to take that opportunity or knock that opportunity out of the park, or to really go for the goals that are a bit scary and in a lane that I've never been before, I think is really scary. And sometimes it prevents me from actually going for those because I just don't feel like I'm changing that. But throughout my life, I felt like I'm not good enough to accomplish those goals, or this is going to prevent you from this, or stuff, stupid situations like, or not situations, stupid thoughts like that of, I want to do this, but am I funny enough? Or am I caring enough? Or am I conversational enough? Is my personality good enough to accomplish the goals that I want? I think that's what I've always struggled with, or am I gonna embarrass myself on the journey, which you always do, you probably will, and that's okay. I think I've learned that's okay, but it's hard to put yourself out there when you don't know what the reaction is going to be around you, and I think that's why I've kind of learned to pour validation into myself instead of others, which has helped with my going for my goals and my helped with my anxiety with my career. It's still hard to unlearn old habits. And I think so we're working through that one of when I do have those thoughts, I'm able to be like, no, that's just your anxiety trying to protect you and keep you safe, but you are good enough. Don't tell yourself that you're not. That's just your inner critic, and we're allowed to silence that. We're allowed to say, no, that is not right. And give ourselves the power and the freedom of, no, you actually are good enough. This vision would not be placed on your heart if it wasn't meant for your path. So just being able to regulate those thoughts, I think, is really helped me, and being able to let them go and release them of, no, those are old thoughts. Those are old behaviors. We're not doing that anymore. I, speaking of my goals, I think I tend to freak out when my goals are not complete or not happening at the pace that I want. This has a lot to do with me being a control freak and wanting to control everything and wanting to accomplish everything. And it almost feels like I'm running out of time to complete all of my goals. And I'm not going to have enough time to do all that I want to do. I think that's something I've always struggled with in my life, the feeling of running out of time and not being at where I want to be. And then being anxious about that and thinking back of, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I've learned that it's God's timing, and I think that's where my faith has really helped me all my life and really come in strongly of it will come in at the right time. It may not come in when you expect it to or when you want it to, but at the perfect time it will come in for you. And it's worth the wait. I think that has helped me to kind of learn to let go and surrender to the universe and to God and to my faith. There's still days I'm anxious about running out of time and feeling like I have so many goals I want to accomplish. I guess that comes just with the ambition of my life and the wanting to do things and knock things off the checklist. But I think I'm learning to take a new approach of slow down, relax, be patient, and it will come to you. And those visions weren't placed on your heart and in your spiritual self for them not to happen. Learning to trust when you don't know what's next as a control freak is really hard. Learning to trust when you don't know the outcome as a control freak is really hard. I think I've kind of undone some of that control freak and made a lot of progress on that. But if you are a control freak, and you're listening, I get it. I get it 100% because it is very easy to worry about completing the goals that you want, especially if you do want to accomplish things and you are an ambitious person. I get it. And you all you want to do is just do those things to make you happy. And that's what makes you happy. And so you want it to be done and you want it to be accomplished. I get it. But it will come. It will come. If you are a deep person like me or an overthinker like me, I think it's easy to sit and reflect on what you haven't done and reflect on the goals that you haven't accomplished and the goals that you still want to complete. I think it's easy to kind of resort to that negative feeling of, oh, I want to do all this. Like, I want to get that promotion, or I want to have that opportunity, or get to this place in my career where I can have the freedom to do this. I get it. And it's easy to sit there and think, I haven't done all this yet. I still have all of this ahead of me that I want to do, and I'm turning a year older, or I think it's really hard around your birthday or, kind of New Year's Eve or New Year's where goal setting is popular and a lot of people are doing it and sharing theirs. I think it's hard to look at it in a positive way of, for example, for me, as I'm went on a bit of a tangent there, but for me, like, and the new year I sat down and I was like, oh my God, I had all these goals for 2024 and I didn't accomplish a lot of them. I'm not at where I want to be. I Then you start to freak out and you start to worry of I still have another year has passed and I still have all of these goals that I want to accomplish. My birthday's in August. I'm a Leo. So even at my birthday, when I was like, oh my God, I'm turning another year older, and I'm almost 30 now, and I still haven't accomplished some of these goals that I thought I would accomplish by the time I was mid 20s. And that is really hard. That's really hard to sit and be like, oh, I thought I would, my life plan said I would accomplish these goals by the time I'm 25 or 26, and I still haven't accomplished them. That's when you learn it's not your plan. You have to surrender, and your plan is always different but better. Nothing ever goes according to your plan. It will still get done, and you'll still get things, you'll still get the goals you want to accomplish. It just may look a little differently, and that you learn, that's okay. I think one thing that has helped me with kind of that, I think actually I'm just having a kind of a revelation as I'm talking of, well, I guess a revelation for myself. I'm not a revelation for like, this has been said before. I'm just kind of having a revelation of myself, how I can change my thinking. Look at it as I still, instead of thinking you're running out of time, which I get, it's a feeling that I talked about in therapy for years. Look at it as I still get to do all this. I still get to know that they will come because they've been placed on your heart for a reason. And just be in the now of it and be like, I still have all of these dreams that I want to accomplish. I still get to go through the journey of trying to accomplish them and I still have all these things that I want to do, but I get the opportunity to wake up and go after them again. Know that when it happens, because it will happen, that I will get to experience that happiness. I think I'm starting to learn to look in the future as excitement of when this happens, because I know it's going to happen. I don't know when or I don't know how. That's up to my faith in the universe. But I know that it's going to happen and I'm excited for it to happen. So use that excitement to go after it and do what you can do, what's in your control. And B, when you're feeling a little anxious or you're feeling a little down or you're running out of time, just think of future you accomplishing it. That's, I think, what's helped me and what I'm going to start doing moving forward of, can you imagine when future me actually accomplishes this? Can you imagine when the reality that I wanted is actually happening? I just had to be a little patient. It was so worth it. Use that excitement of how will future me feel in the future when I do accomplish it, when I do check off that goal, because I will get there. That's what's going to help me every day of it's already mine. Whatever I desire is already mine. It's just not arrived yet, but it will. So live like future you already has it. Live like future you already has it of I know that's mine. So I'm just going to be I'm just looking forward to the day that it actually arrives. It delivers on my doorstep and walk like you already have it. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. Walk like you already have it because you do. And I think just what excites me is the vision of just laying down and thinking of the vision of what I want to do and what do I want to accomplish. And that one day that will come true is really exciting for me. I think my anxiety has already stopped me from going for things because of the fear of being judged. I talked about this briefly, but I think it's easy to sit here and say, if I do really have all of these goals and these things that I want to accomplish, I'm gonna have to put myself out there in ways that I never have, in ways that could cause me to be judged by someone. And that is a scary thought at first, especially when you're in your younger 20s and all you want to do is be liked. And if you suffered from being a people pleaser like I did, it's really hard of I don't want to be judged. I am scared that if I actually go for what I want to go for, people are going to judge me if it doesn't work out right away or it doesn't look like I thought it was going to look like. That is really hard. And I think that prevented me from being more consistent with things. I think I kind of knew what I wanted to do and I would start something and then it wouldn't work out. I'd be like, oh, people are judging me. I like, this isn't working out. I think I've relied on people too much, which I don't want to get too much into, but um, I think instead of knowing that I could come through for myself and give myself the validation, I think I put that validation in other people and hope they would come through for me, if that made sense, in certain opportunities and aspects. I'm not like that anymore, or I've grown, I've grown from that. I don't have the energy. I just don't have the energy to care about what people think. This vision was placed on my heart for a reason, and I'm going to go for it. I owe myself that. I think that's kind of the attitude I got into of I've spent 28 years on this planet trying to get people to like me, trying to have nobody mad at me. That never happens. Someone's always going to be upset over something you can't control. Some people just aren't going to like you regardless of what you do. And I think once I learned that, that was helpful. And of no, if you actually bring authentic energy into settings and places, people react. And that's when people actually start to like you. That's when people want to be around you because they can feel safe with you. And I've always wanted to feel like a safe space and a warm personality. But I think my people pleasing kind of prevented that of because I think sometimes people can see if you're trying too hard of because you just act insecure in certain ways. And I think after 28 years of people pleasing, I was like, no, that's not happening anymore. I'm living for me. I've never put myself first. And I think that doesn't mean you just totally drop out and not care for others. You can put yourself first and still care for others. You can do both. And I think I've learned that because I was always like, if I put myself first, like then I just don't care as much as others. And that's what I want to do. Like I want to help and inspire people. And I can't do that if I'm just focused on myself. No, you can do both. And I think after 28 years, I just was like, no, like I am going to put myself first. I owe myself that. I've spent 28 years not doing it. I owe myself the opportunity to put myself first and to go after the things that I've always wanted to go after and to live authentically and to not care what people think. I know my true friends. I'm not a, and that's all that matters to me. I think the last thing with my career, and I'm sure there's other things, but I think the last thing with my career is sometimes, and I again briefly talked about this, I look back and overthink if I could have done more. If I stayed at an opportunity or job too long, a place too long, if I didn't fully go for it. I think this kind of coincides to feel like I'm running out of time. So when I have those moments of I'm running out of time, I really wanted to accomplish A, B, and C by now. I think that's when I look back and can reflect negatively of, well, if I just did this, I would be further along. Or if I didn't stay in this place too long, I would be further along. Or if I still stayed and didn't move out, would I be further along? I think it's a really difficult thing to not do and to get rid of. I am going to try the future me thing of I already know that I have it. So I'm just excited now for it. I think that will help a little bit. And I think I want to turn, instead of thinking negatively of I could have done more, or done this differently, because what's done is done. You can't change it. You can't change the past. I think I'm going to think more of A, what can I do now? B, forgive myself because in that moment you made that decision or maybe did didn't do that thing. You were operating with what you knew and at the time. And I think that's one of the most powerful lessons of you only knew what you knew at the time, so you just need to forgive yourself and let it go. I think it's easier said than done, but I think I'm going to start trying to think more positively of this is all you still can do. You still have time to do it. It will come. And also, I think I want to look back and think, no, you did all that. Like, be proud of myself for my past and not regret it, I think is what I'm going to try to do. Examples of like, no, you went to college. You got a degree. You went to a college where you knew nobody and you survived. You moved to LA where you moved knowing one family member and with one person, no job, no apartment. You survived. You figured it out. You got an apartment. You got a job. You met cool friends and people who are in the life, in your life for the rest of your life. You did all that before. You can do it again. And instead of looking at it of I didn't do all this, I want to look at it of no, I did do all that. I did do all that. And I've had some scary chapters in my life and I've gotten through every single one of them. And breakthrough came on the other side and you did it. I think that's me by saying you did it. Like every time oh, sorry, I got so excited I hit the microphone. Every time I look back and try to think negatively, I'm gonna be like, no, you did that. Like you did that. So gosh. Uh, I think the next area that my life has been impacted majorly by anxiety is relationships. This is a tough one for me because I've always been a hopeless romantic and I've always wanted a great and desired a great love story, which hasn't happened yet. So this is something I think about a lot or I've thought about a lot through the course of my life. I think it's not bad or acceptable to want love and want someone to love you and to see you and to hear you. And for me not to experience that yet in that intimate of a setting where I felt like that is really a difficult thing to swallow. I think sometimes I put it above too many things, and I've learned to kind of take a back seat from that of it will come when it comes, and I have a trusting in that. But it still can be difficult to think about. I think this is the one that's going to trip me up the most or make me the most emotional. I think I'm confident with my career that things will happen and that I'm confident God will take me to amazing heights and places and opportunities. But with relationships, I don't know. I don't try to worry, because I want to have as much, I want to trust in everything, and I do. I do trust the plan, and I do know that it will happen for me one day. But um, I think this one is a difficult subject for me. I think how it's impacted me in the past is A, it's made me nervous to trust someone 100%. I think I always kind of have a wall up of just from past experience and past trauma of people not respecting me and um honor like with stuff like honoring my boundaries or so I think that makes me a bit nervous to let someone fully in and to trust someone, which I know is a key aspect of actually having a relationship. But I think I'm working on that and getting better at that of letting my walls down. I think another thing is I've run at the first sight of a red flag. I think that's easier for me. Someone told me once, and I'm not going to say who, but someone told me once, it kind of related. They said, this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not actively really dating right now, but they said, you date a lot, but you're a really picky dater. Meaning you go out on a lot of first dates, but you always find something wrong. Like you always look for a red flag. I think that was easier for me to do that and kind of not, again back to the trust and not letting someone in after stuff that happened to me. And it was just easier than avoiding the hurt of, okay, instead of looking at the positive of this person's really nice and caring and supportive and would support me, I think I would look at, well, they did this, so this is a red flag. Some probably weren't even red flags, but I just made them red flags. I just changed the flag like the NASCAR thing. Once someone said that to me, I was like, oh, I really, wow, you're kind of right. Like I do that a lot. And it kind of got me thinking of the patterns and stuff that, my dating patterns and reflecting. I think another big thing is, and I think this came from a place of insecurity and wanting to be a people pleaser. I would question if someone was really for me, if they really loved me. I've always wanted a God-like love in my life, or someone that God sent to me, like a great romance story, like the movies, like the fairy tales. I've always wanted that. You want to be loved and heard and seen, as I said before. And I think if you do desire that, sometimes you can question when you are in that process of finding that if that person really does. Does that person really love me? Do they see me? Do they hear me? Are they happy with me? Are they really for me? And I think that would get in my way a lot, and that's why I would be picky and look for red flags. And wow, this is all coinciding together. It's all anxiety. It's literally all my anxiety of like, no, like I can't trust someone. Like, where's the red flag? Like, are they really for me? That's all anxiety. Oh, I just realized that. That is all anxiety. And I think that is the anxiety I talked about earlier of, I think some was protection because that person, some people weren't right for me. So I think some was, God looking out for me and protecting me from not entering that. But I think some I could have given a bit more of a chance. And I think some was just anxiety of, no, this person actually hasn't been bad to you. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we just weren't compatible. Maybe God told something that I didn't, which is again protection. But I think some could have been like, no, you're looking for like a way out before I think I was looking for a way out sometimes before I even stepped foot in the door, if that makes sense. I don't want to do that anymore, but yeah, I think my anxiety played a huge role in that. I think, okay, before I say this next point, I think everyone is kind of it like this in a way. And if I think the people that say they're not actually are the most. I think I become a bit jealous sometimes because of that insecurity and that anxiety. I I wouldn't act out or act crazy in a way of confronting the person. I would more keep the thoughts to myself and kind of like take notes, of, oh, so and so was a bit too flirty here, or um, they're not really, they gave out their number to someone else on the first day. I've told that story before. Um, And then I think that's why I would be like, those I think were legitimate reasons for ending it or not moving on to another date. But I think sometimes it's easy to like, I think we've all had that moment. And if you haven't, you're lying, where you're on a date and someone gets too flirty with someone else or someone like starts talking to someone else and you kind of like feel something like in your body, like, oh, I don't really, I'm a little bit jealous right now. Does that mean that person's for you? Like if you're out and like say you're out on an like it's early in the relationship stage and you're out at a bar or whatever and someone's talking to like for me it would be a man talking to another man. And when that happens, like if you get a bit jealous, like or you don't want that person talking to them, does that mean they're the one for you? Because you don't want them talking to anyone else? I don't know. I'm not I'm interested to hear that take. I think more seriously, it's because of or deeper, it's because I've always had a fear of abandonment and I think that is why I sometimes can be a little bit jealous of 'cause I think I have to protect or protect that person or they're going to leave me if that makes sense or I have to overstep to get them not to leave me for that person they're talking to. When in reality, 95% of the time it probably won't happen. They're just having a conversation and, they're going to come back to you at the end of the night. But I think my fear of abandonment really played a role in being a bit that way and being scared that that person's going to leave me. I think that probably comes from unresolved trauma or trauma that I've discussed in therapy before, which maybe one podcast I'll get into it. That's really a deep conversation. So I think I have to get a bit more comfortable uh before I share that. But one day, I think I think in the gay community, obviously there's like a thing of hooking up and casual relationships. I don't think that helps with the jealousy factor if you want a monogamous relationship. And I know one's out for me. I just haven't found the right person yet. I think I'm not saying all gay people are not fans of monogamy. I'm not saying that. There are gay men that are, and I will find my person. I just haven't yet. I think, but I think it also can be like, okay, I don't want this person to cheat on me. Like, I think that's kind of a fear of if they get too cozy with this person, will they cheat on me? Will they leave me for them? That goes back to leaving and, for another person and stuff. But I think if you're with the right person, that won't happen. And I've always also had that trust side of me of like, I know when I'm with the right person, like, I trust you not to. I've always been a person of, it's weird because I have the side of that fear of abandonment, but I also have the side of, well, if a man's going to cheat, he's going to cheat. It's not your fault. Like, if it's going to happen, he's going to do it. You can't stop a man from doing what he wants to do. So I think I have that side of me too, which would probably help with the right person because you just have to have that trust of, oh no, they're not going to do that to me. Like the right person for me would not do that for me. And the right person is going to treat me well and not make me feel uncomfortable and make me feel safe and seen and loved and heard. I think in the past, and I've talked about this briefly, it made me afraid to set boundaries and afraid if those boundaries will be respected. I think that's from past trauma, which I've been to therapy for, and I think it's still always a fear when, you know, you're trying to recover from your past of if you do set boundaries, you want them to be respected, and some people don't do that, and it can be really a hurtful process if they don't. I think knowing that and knowing that it's happened, I think it's more of a fear now if I set boundaries, like that person will leave me, back to my fear of abandonment. I think if I set boundaries, like that person will leave me, or I won't open myself up enough, or like not be vulnerable enough. I think there's a lot of, you know, ways that those boundaries scare me, or the fear of abandonment, I guess, scares me. Another thing is, I think being a hopeless romantic and wanting a relationship sometimes, and I think I've kind of had to take a step back. I think and realize this. I think some people want a relationship in general versus the actual connection with someone. Like they just want the relationship. They don't care who it's with. They don't care, if that person's the one for them or not. They just want to be in a relationship. I was on a date once and I realized a man was like that. And I think that kind of did two things to me. I think one, it kind of said, okay, it kind of taught me a lesson. I saw something the other day. Everyone comes in your life for a reason. You meet everyone for a reason. Either you change them or they do something to change you. And I think this is one of those cases where they did something to change my thinking of I can't just be out looking for any relationship. Like I can't just settle because I want a partner. I need to find the right one. And I think some people, including myself at times, just want to be in, you know, a relationship. I don't think I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, or I'm not blaming it on, the man I went on a date with. For me, I just was like, oh, like, does he actually, and maybe this was me questioning, but I was like, does he actually want to be with me? Or it almost feels like he just wants to be in a relationship. You could place any man on the date right now, and it would be the same, if that makes sense. Like, he would want to be in a relationship. I think that made me think that, maybe maybe that kind of steered me away from actually committing because I don't know if it's the case, but just because of, oh my God, if everyone's like that, like, do they actually, that goes back to the questioning if they actually like me. And I think maybe that didn't help with my commitment and like, oh, does he actually like me or does he actually just want to be in a relationship? All of this is anxiety. I'm telling you, as I go forward, literally all of this, I guess, I mean, that's the purpose of the episode, but it all ties into together. And I think just separating of no, your inner critic is you can put that to the side for now, and you can like that's not right. Like, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I see better, and I know that it's okay. Not only looking at the past of my dating patterns and how anxiety has defined them in a way of questioning myself, of the fear of abandonment, of being vulnerable, setting boundaries, etc. I think it also makes me nervous about the future. I think I'm trying to be better with it and, surrender and trust. But I think there still is some anxiety there of, will my partner come along? Who is my partner? I think it's always interesting, side note, to think that like, because I have a feeling I'm going to get married. I think it's part of my destiny and it's part of my desire, and I think I'm meant to get married. It's always interesting to think of like who's that person going to be? Like who's that person that I'm going to see every day and live with and love so deeply and see so deeply, vice versa, and like grow with, and it's always fun to think about. Anyway, will my partner come along? Is back to anxiety. That is something I think about. I think about will I get the marriage I've dreamed of since I was a child? I maybe for the girlies, I've always dreamed of my wedding as a child. I know they say it's like a little, you know, something. I guess I had that little girl dream of, I've always dreamed about my wedding would be like since I was a child. At the time, wasn't out yet. So I probably thought of things a little differently, but I've always dreamed about the aesthetic of my wedding and what I want it to be like. You will see when I get married. I don't want to reveal it, but I've always had a dream of like what my wedding's going to be like. And I've always, yeah. So I'm excited for when it actually happens. I, speaking of like questions like, will I get the wedding I've planned since I was a teenager? Can probably answer, like, if you ask me what I want at my wedding, I could probably answer most questions of, no, I want this type of food or this live band versus DJ. What are the other things like where, location, how many people, stuff like that. I could probably answer, and I don't even have a partner yet. But I've always dreamed of my wedding. I know I'm down to two songs for what I want my first dance to be. I'm hoping one of them resonates with my future husband, so we can kind of have that moment together. I also, okay, I do know what I want my wedding to be like. I'm also want to cater it to my future husband and have things in it that represent the both of us. So I am willing to adjust and change a little bit depending on if the relationship calls for that. But I or maybe he'll just, I don't know, we'll see. But I am, if that's the case, I'll do that. If not, I already know it's gonna be like, I'm down to two first songs. I'm down to two. I think they're really okay. Anyway, I think before I do a whole wedding episode and how I want my wedding to be. I don't know, I have a lot of friends like getting married right now for some reason. So I think that doesn't help either. Like it's a good thing. I'm so glad my friends, I love weddings. I'm so glad my friends, are getting married and found the love of their life. But it's also like putting me, like it just reminds me of, oh, I want this, I want this. I think anyway, like I said, before we get in a wedding episode here, that's not what the episode is about. I also have had anxiety. The last category I'm going to talk about today is friendships. I've Anxiety has really impacted friendships in my life. I think up there with career a lot. I think the first thing is insecurity in friendships. I thank God so much now that the friends that I have in my life, I have secure friendships with, and I don't have to worry. I don't have a fear of abandonment. I found my people, and I thank God for that so much. I'm so grateful. But before, I think with friendships, especially, in college or when I first moved to Los Angeles, I think I was really insecure in a lot of them of does this person like me? Like, and I think it would make me act in certain, I think it would change around people to try to fit in and, okay, I'll change this about myself so this person likes me, or I won't take up as much space because they like to be the center of attention. I think small things like that. I think may, I don't anymore, but I think my anxiety made me take a lot of things personally in my young 20s friendships. I think I made up things in my head that weren't true. So this person is mad at me because of this, and this, when, they're sitting on their couch watching Netflix, not even thinking about me. And that's not in a bad way, but like, they're not mad at me at all. What's the point? Like, I think sometimes we make up things in our head and scenarios in our head of why someone could be mad at us. My new rule is if you can't tell me, it's not my problem. And I know that sounds a lot harsher than intended and meaner than intended. I don't mean it to come across that way because it could come off a bit dismissive. I don't mean it that way. I mean it in the way of if I have such secure friendships and I have people that I can trust and I can talk to, I don't want to sit here and think if they have a problem with me. I think it's more of that way of if you create this safe space, your friends will be okay to come talk to you if something's wrong. Or or I should say, and it helps with, I'm not going to sit here and think, because what if I'm sitting here and thinking so and so has a problem with me when they don't have a problem with me at all? So I think it's more of that of, I'm not making up scenarios in my head anymore. If they have a problem with me, they can come talk to me, and vice versa. I expect the same rule to apply to my friends. Like, if I have a problem with you and I can't tell you, that's on me, that's not on you. I think they should live by the same rule in my friendship of, if they only can't tell me, that's not my problem. And I think, it just makes it easier. You don't have to play a guessing game. Someone's mad at you all the time. And, you know, you learn to have healthy conversations. And if you have a disagreement with somebody, you talk about it and you move forward or in whatever, move forward in whatever capacity that you need to. I think I got in the way of some genuine friendships because my anxiety made me do things out of fear of losing people. This goes back to fear of abandonment with dating. I think I also had that with friendships of I'm gonna lose this person if I act a certain way. Or I think there's a difference between asking somebody if you're okay versus asking if they're okay. And I think in my early 20s friendships, it got to the point where I think I was asking too much of, are we okay? Like, are we good? Like, are you mad at me? Do you like me anymore? Are we still friends? Versus now, I think it's more, you know, if we have a problem, we come to each other, we talk about it, and we fix it. And I'm so glad with my friends now. I'm so grateful that it's not drama. It's like, we're fine. I don't have drama with any of my friends, and we don't disagree a lot. The rare disagreement happens, we talk about it, we move on. Like we really I love my friends in that way of like, I don't have to worry about that. Like, we just all are there to have a good time, have fun, like support each other. And I think now I'm more concerned instead of checking in of like, are we good? Like, are we still friends? I think I'm more concerned of, are you good? Like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? Like, how are things going with you? And vice versa, my friends ask me that too of, are you okay? Like, I think that's more important to me now. I think there's a lot of friendships in my life where, and I think, people are removed from your life for a certain reason and, they come into your life for a reason to teach you things. But I think there are some friendships where we kind of just distance where my anxiety maybe got in the way of helping that friendship not distance. But again, I think everything happens for a reason and those people were distanced from me for a reason. But I think there's certain friendships I look back and I'm like, I acted like a lot. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think I can blame myself for, having anxiety or maybe checking in too much or, I don't want to be harsh on myself. But I think there's a lot of friendships. I remember this one, I don't want to say it because I don't want to like make them feel bad. But I'm thinking about this one time in my life where I think back and I'm like, I didn't have to do all that. Like, I didn't have to do all that. Like, I didn't have to be so anxious about the friendships. And I could have been a bit more laid back. And I can see now looking back of, oh, they probably thought this kid was a lot. And they probably thought I was anxious all the time and like a bit too much. I don't know. I don't think you can ever be too much, but I think, I wish I acted differently in those friendship situations. But what's done is done. What's the past is the past. And if I'm meant to reconnect with people and get closer with people, it will happen. I think anxiety also can put up a barrier for some people to get to know the genuine you. I think that comes with being vulnerable. I think, just like finding your partner, finding friends is important and finding people who can support you for, lifetime friends. That's something everybody wants. And that's something that, you want friends to support you through every season of your life. I am so thankful for the friends that have been there for like multiple seasons of my life, multiple chapters, and stuck with me through it all, and vice versa, me to them. That's what I think really makes you grow in friendships of seeing each other through multiple seasons because not every season is, sunshine. So I think seeing people through certain seasons that maybe aren't sunshine is important. It helps you get to know the real them. It brings you closer, it brings you a deeper connection. So I think it's important to, be friends with people in their rainy season as well because, rain doesn't last forever and that person will get their sparkle back. There's nothing more than I love seeing in this world than my friends getting their sparkle back. If they've been down, if they've been going through it and I can see them start to get their sparkle back and then they get their sparkle back and they're healed, it's one of my favorite things in the world. When I was in my early 20s, I was afraid that someone would use the information I would share with them against them. I remember this is because of a past friendship. This is probably why I'm so not vulnerable sometimes. I think 'cause I'm just realizing this. Well, I've realized it before, but like I haven't really put deep thought into it. I think when you build a friendship with somebody, like you said, you want people who can support you and grow with you and you can talk with. And maybe if you're not in a season of sunshine, you can be have that deep connection with of telling them some things that maybe you wouldn't tell other people. I think that is important. And I think you expect your friends, because they're your friends at the time, to honor that and not go, tell everybody your business. I mean, I live by the honor code of if we were friends at one point or even involved in a dating capacity, I'm not like if you tell me something, say, hey, I don't want this spread, like this is between me and you, I will honor that. I am not gonna go tell anybody else. And even if something happens where we don't become friends anymore or not seeing each other anymore, I still will keep that in the vault. I'm not, like you asked me at the time of when we had that trust in each other to do that. I had this one situation where I don't even know if I said like let's keep it between us, but I remember having a conversation with one of somebody who used to be my friend and like in my early 20s. And I remember having this conversation with somebody that used to be my friend in my early 20s. And I just had the conversation. I don't know how the conversation came up. I don't know I don't think it was a planned conversation. If it was, I don't think like I knew what I was going to say. But I remember having what I thought at the time was a deep conversation, and then certain things happened where I thought it was a safe space because of certain actions that person took. And then come to find out years later, one of my friends told me that they actually talked bad about me after that conversation. And I'm not going to get into what they said because I don't want to give that power, but it was really hurtful. And I think that's why sometimes I have a wall up of I don't want anyone to do that to me again. And it made me nervous because I'm like, oh, I thought I could trust somebody to talk to somebody about something. And it was actually about part of it was actually about the topic I'm talking about today, anxiety. And I thought I could confide in somebody, and then it kind of blew back in my face. I think that's why sometimes now I'm like, oh, I need to be careful who I share things with, and I just would rather not tell you because I'll just keep it to myself. I think I've learned that, you have to trust people. Just because one person does that to you doesn't mean other people in your life are going to do that to you, and other people are like that. I think I've found friends now that I can confide in, and that's not going to happen, and I trust them and their safe spaces. And I think you have to learn to trust again, but I think for me, it's still a process. Another thing with my anxiety is I felt like I was fighting for friendships until the wheels fell off. So like in the back of my mind, I knew the friendship was over, or I knew we weren't as good friends anymore, or things would happen like I just explained, and I still would try to be friends with that person. That not in that case because I didn't find out until we weren't friends, but like I'm just saying people would do things to me. I'm like, oh no, you got a 90-second chance. Like I forgive you, and I think you should forgive people, but I think at some point you're like, you gotta get your life together and not run to the wheels fall off. I think it was because, well, first you have to learn that friendship is a two-way street and when to let it go. When that person, maybe you guys just aren't serving each other anymore. I think it goes both ways. But I think it's also hard to find that balance of being supportive and loyal because you want to feel that way versus clinging on to something that's supposed to end. And I think I always struggled with, well, I want to be loyal to my friends. Like I will ride with you, like ride or die. Like I will ride with you no matter what. And I think sometimes that kind of gets you to riding till the wheels fall off. And I think I always used to think that was a good thing of because that showed my loyalty. That showed I was supportive. Like I rode with you until our friendship. You ended the friendship because, or you moved on from me because I'm your friend. Like I'm gonna be here for you. I don't think that's always healthy. I think sometimes you have to know when to let go and when someone isn't serving you anymore. I do want to wrap this up, but I do want to say if you do deal with anxiety, be easy on yourself. It's not something that goes away. You're not going to wake up one day magically and not have it. It's something that we learn to manage. And so if you have an anxious moment or have a setback, it's okay. It's okay. Just don't be so harsh on yourself. Don't let the inner critic win. I think that's one of the things I'm learning of I am my harshest critic already, and I'm trying to ease up on that. I'm trying to be kinder to myself. You don't get anywhere by hating yourself, and your past will not define you. And I think there's like a stat of 85% of things you make up in your head never happen. So thank your anxiety. Thank it for being a safe space, but sometimes you have to realize that's actually not the truth. That actually didn't happen. Like we're not going to play connect the dots here and go into a tailspin. You know what I mean? So I think just be easy on yourself. Be easy on yourself and start being kinder to yourself and forgiving yourself for, doing what you knew at the time was the best decision for you. And you're not always going to make the right decision, and that's okay. There'll probably be times in the future you won't. So just be easy on yourself. I'll see you next time.